Hi, I'm Terry Real. Thank you for joining me. I want to talk very briefly and give you an overview of how RLT, Relational Life Therapy, actually works. There are the essence of relational life therapy. Look, it's called Relational Life Therapy. My institute is called Relational Life Institute. Guess what? We're about helping men, women, and non-binary folks move into living a relational life. What does that mean? It means a life of authentic connection to yourself, loving, authentic connection to yourself, to others, other races, other peoples, society at large, the planet and nature at large, and spirit. A life of connection to you, to those who love you, and to the planet at large. So how do we move from disconnection to connection? How do we move from trauma to healing? Because let me be clear, all trauma is a state of disconnection. And the consequence of disconnection in childhood is disconnection as an adult. And the healing power of connection cannot be overstated. The cure, quote unquote, for addictions is intimacy. The cure, along with biology, of almost all interpersonal and psychological problems is intimacy. Intimacy with yourself, intimacy with others, intimacy with the planet. So how do we do it? There are three phases in RLT. The first I call waking up the client. This is where the therapist, in no uncertain terms, holds the mirror up to the client of exactly what you're doing to blow your own foot off. We call it your repeated relational stance. Your half of the vicious circle you and your partner are in endlessly. What could a dysfunctional relational stance look like? Here's an example: angry pursuit. Angry pursuit is an oxymoron. Angry pursuit is a good example of you doing something that will never get you more of what you want. You will never get someone to be closer to you by angrily complaining about how they're not close to you. That is just not going to work. So the first phase is helping our clients see what the adaptive child part of them is up to and repeating over and over again. They're repeating what they learned, how they learned to cope in childhood. They're bringing that into their long-term relationships, and it is not working. Let's take a look. The essential skill, and it takes some training to learn how to do this. The essential skill in that first phase, waking up our client, is what we call joining through the truth. Now look, any therapist or coach can clobber somebody with the truth. That's not the point. When I went to therapy school, I was taught that first you form a trusting relationship with your client, then maybe after 2 or 3 years, you tell them the difficult truths about themselves. Nonsense. In RLT, because we do it with so much skill and love, we form the relationship with our clients by confronting the difficult truths right out of the starting gate, and they feel closer to us because of the confrontation, not further away. How do we do it? By loving them, by forming an alliance with the best part of them. I can't tell you how many sessions end with my saying something like this: hey, Bill, who's been a chronic liar, cheater, philanderer for 20 years. Bill, you're a decent man. I've been with indecent men to the bone. They're called sociopaths. But you're not like that. You know what's so sad? I'm talking to a decent man who's behaved indecently for the last 20 years. Will you let me rescue the real you from this nonsense? Who's going to say no to that? Joining through the truth means we hold the person in warm regard while at the same time being very clear about holding their behavior with accountability, both in the same breath. It's new for therapists. It's new for our culture. I call it loving power. how to stand firm with someone and love them in the same breath. It's one of the skills we teach our clients, but it's the core of that first phase of our work as therapists. Loving confrontation, waking up the client. The second phase is trauma work. And as many people have figured out, once you're trauma triggered, skills go right out the window. So we have to deal with trauma. Once we understand what your adaptive child looks like, what is the stance you learned in childhood that you're bringing into the marriage? The next question is, where did you learn it? Who did you learn it? Every single one of those adaptations comes from a relationship that you internalize. If you're defiant, who was trying to control you? If you're evasive, who was intrusive? Show me the thumbprint and I'll tell you about the thumb. Then we do inner child work, deep, deep trauma work. I mean, bent over crying, trauma work in the presence of the partner. Janina Fisher is the only other person I know who does this. It's infinitely preferable to do deep trauma work while the other person is sitting there. There are a few caveats, but by and large, than to have you do that work in somebody's office and maybe say a sentence or two about it. The partner who is watching you do this trauma work has been on the receiving end of your adaptive child. They know all about what it's like to behave with that person. Now they get to see where it comes from, and it opens empathy and opens their heart. Trauma work is essential to move us to the third and final phase, which is education and skill building. Once we confront you about what you're doing wrong, for example, angry pursuit, it's incumbent upon us to teach you what right would look like. Some trauma people believe that once you remove the trauma, people will instinctively know how to be intimate with each other. I think that's nonsense. We live in an anti-relational, individualistic, patriarchal culture. We do not teach our sons and daughters the skills they need in order to make this work. How to stand up for yourself and be loving at the same time. How to listen and not be defensive. How to negotiate. What to do when you're in your prefrontal cortex, wise adult self, and your partner is having none of it. They're stuck in their adaptive child and they're being a jerk. How to cherish the relationship. There's a host of relational skills that once you have the map, that this is a biosphere that you're in, this is a relationship, it's in your interest to work on, then there's a toolbox that opens up. Loving confrontation, this is the pattern between the two of you that has to stop now. In family of origin, inner child trauma work, this is what you adapted to. Let's form a relationship with these immature parts of you and stop letting them run the show. I like to say that maturity comes when we deal with our inner children and don't foist them off on our partners to deal with. And 3, education, skill building, focusing on our strengths and amplifying. I believe it's the combination of all 3 of these, loving confrontation, deep, deep trauma work in the presence of the other, and skill building and education that produces such profound change in the people that we work with. And RLT is known for producing profound change quickly. Come and join us and learn how it's done. If this sounds like something you're ready to be interested in, come to our website. It's just the name of the therapy, relationallife.com, 2 L's, relationallife.com, and click request information. There's a whole lot there about our lovely training, everything from how to get started to the whole 2-year fully developed commitment that will transform you, your practice, and your life. Thank you all. Hope to see you soon.